That's why I'm marching, yes, I'm marching down freedom's road. Ain't nobody gonna stop me.
It has just as much of a deleterious effect on white people and possibly equal as it does black people.
African Americans were discriminated against in many different ways during World War II. They were tested on, and workplaces, including the military, were segregated. During the war, African Americans began the WWII campaign to fight for the rights and responsibilities that they deserve. The campaign vouched for victory over fascism abroad and victory over racism at home. The campaign included protests and supporting the war effort overseas and in their homeland. Still, many Southern whites felt that African Americans were not as capable or as smart as whites because of their skin color. This is important because African Americans are humans just like whites are, and the WWII campaign helped people begin to realize this. Many African American leaders hoped that the war might provide jobs and alleviate their dismal economic situations. However, few found meaningful employment with national defense employers before Pearl Harbor. Out of 100,000 Americans working in the aircraft industry in 1940, for example, only 240 were African Americans. Even jobs provided by the government and military remained segregated.
One of the things that I realized, and I realized this even before going over there, was that our African brothers have gained their independence faster than you and I here in America have.
Nobody gonna stop me, nobody's gonna keep me.
Very few blacks had adequate jobs, and when they did, they remained segregated from whites. This means that blacks had fewer rights and responsibilities than whites did.
So whatever kind of action program can be devised to get us the things that are ours by right, then I'm for that kind of action no matter what the action is.
Although the United States Armed Forces were officially segregated until 1948, World War II laid the foundation for post-war integration of the military. In 1941, fewer than 4,000 African Americans were serving in the military, and only 12 African Americans had become officers. By 1945, more than 1.2 million African Americans would be serving in uniform on the home front in Europe and the Pacific, including thousands of African American women in the Women's Auxiliaries. Still, the units would remain segregated, and black servicemen suffered from widespread discrimination throughout the war, often relegated to non-combat duties, subjected to racial quotas, and excluded from military career opportunities available to whites.
We got to be honest. It is not an equal opportunity offender. Black, Latino, and indigenous people are suffering and dying disproportionately.
I don't remember any of others. I worked at a Girl Scout camp. I don't remember anybody else being other than white there.
Yes, I'm marching.
Quote, all that could be done for them by a Christian and scientific civilization now that they are in the world, but who should, if possible, be segregated under proper conditions so that their curse died with them and was not transmitted to future generations. End quote, Winston Churchill.
African Americans gravitated toward black activists like A. Philip Randolph, the founder and president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first black labor union.
We wanted to ensure that in this war, as unlike the previous war, African Americans would have an opportunity to work in war plants and would profit from the war in the same way that white people did.
James G. Thompson's letter quotes him asking if he should sacrifice his life for a country that doesn't give him the rights and responsibilities that he deserves.
I'm on my way with my head up proud.
Even though World War II provided more job opportunities for African Americans, they were still not given the same rights and responsibilities as whites. Because of this, Thompson wrote a letter to the largest black-owned newspaper to call out the racial discrimination towards African Americans. This is what really began the WWII campaign. Despite the opportunities promised to some African Americans during World War II, Thompson was relegated to working in the cafeteria at a local defense plant. In January 1942, Thompson wrote to the Pittsburgh Courier to call out the discrimination and inequality that African Americans experienced in the U.S. While fighting for the freedom overseas, his question, quote, "Should I sacrifice to live half American?" end quote, resonated with thousands of readers. It inspired the Courier to widely promote the concept of double victory, the idea that defeating tyranny abroad would also bring about the defeat of racism at home.
I wasn't aware at that time, though I questioned why it was they had to sit in the back of the church. It's the only time I really saw very many.
Yes, I'm marching.
In the Double V campaign, African American leaders and soldiers advocated for equal rights and responsibilities among all races with the Double V campaign. There were newspaper articles, speeches, editorials, and more during the campaign. African American leaders and soldiers asserted that World War II should be a, quote, war against bigotry and racial intolerance both at home and abroad, end quote. The African American newspaper, the Pittsburgh Courier, provocatively asked, quote, "Should I sacrifice to live half American? Would it be demanding too much to demand full citizenship rights in exchange for the sacrificing of my life?" end quote. To draw attention to their extension of the war aims, African Americans wore double V buttons. The black press wrote extensive articles detailing the accomplishments of African American soldiers, and leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois wrote editorials and gave speeches heralding African American soldiers' double-themed war effort.
I was different in my family. Most of my family, in fact, all of my family, disliked anyone that wasn't like them. And I always thought that was wrong.
Freedom Road was one of the pieces Hughes wrote during World War II with the Double V campaign's mantra in mind.
United we stand, divided we fall. Let's make this land safe for one and all. I've got a message, and you know it's right. Black and white together, united fight. That's why I'm marching. Yes, I'm marching.
Starting in September of 1945, the Double V was finally removed from the paper. However, it lived in spirit as a single V. The victory abroad had been won. The single V lasted into 1946.
Those are the very people I want to fight. That's why
This reveals that the Double V campaign set the groundwork for African Americans to be treated equally and for them to have the same jobs, rights, and responsibilities as whites. Only 3 years after the war ended, segregation in the armed forces ended. This is because of how hard the African American population worked and how well they served in the military. They were also just as proud to be serving as whites were.
yes, I'm marching, marching down freedom.
Quote, "Victory against our enemies at home and victory over our enemies on the battlefields abroad. We have a stake in this fight. We are Americans too," end quote. James G. Thompson.
There have been times where I've been stopped, and it wasn't clear why. And
By police.
By police officers. Rather, what they were suggesting was there is a specific problem that is happening in the African American community that's not happening in other communities. You can see it not just in statistics, you see it in the attitudes of young Americans across the political spectrum. But we're not where we need to be. And all of us have more work to do.
The Double V campaign taught people to stand up for their rights and responsibilities. Because of the campaign, people are standing up for their own rights and responsibilities and the rights and responsibilities of others. People also learned to stand up for what they believed in. The Double V campaign was only one of many civil rights movements, but it set the groundwork for African Americans to have the same rights and responsibilities as whites. The African American population still faces discrimination today, but they are better off than they were 84 years ago. The fight for equality is continued today with the Black Lives Matter movement. The Double V campaign played a big part in getting the United States to where we are today.
Marching down Freedom's Road. Ain't nobody gonna stop me. Nobody's gonna keep me from marching down Freedom's Road. It ought to be plain as the nose on your face. There's room in this land for every race. Some folk think that freedom just ain't right. Those are the very people I want to